Right, what we have is a TIMBABUILD system. We have two major parts to it. We have the 10 and we have the 60. The 10 is designed for minor splicing and jointing. So that's a splice done with a 10, and as you can see, you use very little in order that you can actually get the splice to work. Within that 2 mil, you'll actually break the grain of the wood before you actually break the joint. And then we have the 60, which is a high build. Now with the 60, you can use this, as it says on there, 60, you can use it up to 60 mil deep in one go. The length doesn't matter, but it's the depth. With epoxies, you must not put epoxy on top of epoxy. Okay, so it's a one-off shot. If you need to repair on top of the epoxy, you have to use a polyester-based wood filler. That's your standard wood fillers. Or what we have is the TIMBABUILD finish. Now the TIMBABUILD finish goes over the top and gives you a really smooth finish. So if you've got any little imperfections that you haven't got right, you put the TIMBABUILD finish over the top, but it is designed to be thin. It's not designed to be put in at any depth. If you try to put it in any depth, it will actually slump slightly. But all you need to do is sand it and put some more over the top, and then you can build it up. So it can be built up, but the epoxy cannot. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do a repair.
If you've got an epoxy already,
Yep.
will that go on top of the original epoxy and then you could fill?
No.
So it has to be...
It has to be. Epoxy doesn't like epoxy. It doesn't like itself. So it doesn't like sticking to itself. If you put epoxy on top of epoxy, you'll find it will part.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Even if you put the primer on, it'll still part. So it just doesn't like attaching to itself. Okay?
Yeah, brilliant.
Now, before we do a repair, what we need to do is we need to prime it, the wood. So once we've taken out all the rot, we must take out all the rot, and the timber can't be any more than about 18% moisture content, so it's fairly dry. Once we've done that and we've got it all out, we take out our primer, and the primer is a 2-part system, and it's a 2-to-1 system. So you use 2 parts of the base material, 1 part of the activator. They come with measuring caps on the top. Mix the 2 together and then paint it on to your repair. And you must wait a minimum of 20 minutes. And then what it is doing is actually opening the grain of the wood. And by opening the grain of the wood, the epoxy actually goes into the grain of the wood, so you get a permanent repair. That's why when you try to break it, you actually break the joints. You never break the material itself. And by doing the job properly, you get a 60-year guarantee on the product. Now the product comes in 2 parts, joined together, and always label up. It does tell you on the side, but it's always label up and into the gun. Open the top. We dispense it out. They both come out together. You see the hardener and your base material. Now with this one, you have approximately about 40 to 45 minutes working time. Once you release the tool, it stops, it doesn't run. You can then put your cap back on. Now these have a 2-year shelf life. Even when they've been opened, they still have a 2-year shelf life from date of manufacture. Now this is important, is the mixing side of it. You must mix it and mix it thoroughly. So you want one even colour at the end. And if you can see it now, you've got 2 colours in there. You've got a yellow and you've got the white. So you need to mix this completely. Taking it off the tool and bringing it back in each time. Okay, we now have a nice even mix, one colour. Even when I take that off, there's no difference in the colours coming off the tool, which is what you want, one even colour. Okay? Now, we can do this in one of two ways. You can either try and do it like this on your own, and so we can insert it in, clean off the tool, take off the excess, and we can bring it down and we follow it through very, very slowly, gently, following the curve, keeping the tool, click. Again, come back over, follow it down, click it off. And there we've done a repair. Now for the amateur that don't normally do it, what you can use is plastic. So if you wanted, or you didn't get it as good as what you thought you wanted it at the back, you can put a piece of plastic against it, like so. Mine's pretty good as it is, but you can actually go up against your plastic, leave your plastic on there until it cures, and then once it's fully cured, you can take your plastic off. So if we were doing a large repair like that, you could take a large piece of plastic, put it into there, like so. And literally go straight up against the plastic. Doing exactly the same. Try and clean your tool as much as possible. Keeps your tool clean. Stops you having too much on the back of your tool. So we can now use this as a guide. Into the corner, follow it up, peel it down, into the corner, clean it off, and now we have a repair for an edge.
And you won't stick to the plastic?
No.
No, okay.
It'll hold against the plastic, but it won't stick to the plastic.
Okay.
The one thing about these is that they don't really like plastics. So it's good for the boards, for mixing on plastic boards. It's good for holding it in place. One other way that you could do it, this is a sneaky little trick. As you can see, there's a repair done on there. Now if I wanted to repair that, what I could do is put my epoxy in, put my plastic bag over the top, form it all the way through with my plastic bag, and then leave it. And once it's fully cured, I can pull my plastic bag off and I will have a perfectly formed joint. This was it's a 200-year-old door, and all the beading was parting and he couldn't buy it. So what I did was I filled it, plastic bag over the top. The bag is blown a little bit, but plastic bag over the top. And then when I took the bag off, we had the perfect mould. All it needed was a little bit of sanding just to get the little bits off the side, but he had a perfect mould each time, and he did the whole of the door. With the EWS, this is a primer. It's not a hardener, and the primer actually soaks into the timber and opens the grain of the timber. With a hardener, it forms a barrier over the top. So you're not actually attaching to the timber. With the primer, you actually attach to the timber. That's what gives it its hold. And that's why we can offer, if you use it correctly, we can offer a 60-year guarantee on it, because it will not come out of the timber. It's a tropic. It's very thick. So you can actually use it directly above your head. So you could even put it in a 60mm thick, directly above your head, and it won't slump and it won't fall out. Now the beauty of epoxies is they don't slump, they don't shrink, and they don't expand. Okay? Now some epoxies do expand. If you looked at our competitor, it tends to expand if you put it in too thick, whereas this one doesn't. There was something else I was going to say then, it's gone to the top of my head.
So you don't, with the depth, you don't need to backfill with any timber or anything at all.
What I always say is if it's too deep, it is better to splice timber in first. Now to splice the timber in, what we have is the 10. Okay, this is designed for splicing and jointing. So what I would do is I would splice pieces in first and then fill over the top. But you must leave at least 15 to 20 mil over the top of the timber to fill with the 60. That way it still gives you your guarantee of no moisture or anything getting into it, because once this is in, nothing will get past it. I'm not saying it won't rot there, but it certainly won't rot where you've already done the repair. I'll leave that on the side and you'll see when that'll go off. Because the one thing with epoxy is once you mix it, you're better off spreading it out. The more you spread it out, the slower it'll go off. The more of a ball you leave it in, the faster it will cure. That's why if you use our epoxies on a thin joint like this, it'll take about 4 to 4.5 hours to cure at today's temperature. But if I put that in a 60mm thick, that would cure in about 3 hours. Because the thicker it is, the faster it cures. With the TIMBABUILD, the 60, you can actually colour it. Okay? So any variety of colours you can put into the 60, but they must be oil-based colorants. And you only need a tiny drop. You mix it first, then put a tiny spot on, mix it in, and you keep doing it until you get the colour you want. But you need very, very little.